$2,500 or even more than that. So I realized probably if I could get a 61 or 2, that would be good. I'd even take a 58, 9, or 60. 58, 9, 60, 61, and 2 were very available. Bumped into them in a lot of parking lots. There were still a lot of people using them. I started looking in late '68. That was the day I got a job in New Jersey working for Lever Brothers, and that was one of my work study jobs. And I had a '64 Volkswagen Beetle convertible that my dad gave me because he got a 1969 Toyota Corona. And this is me on the Volkswagen. Had 120,000 on it. It was kind of beat up, but it ran great. And a lot of people, I was in school in Philadelphia, a lot of people, they could get home for $1. I ran on Veltane, which was below, well, No-Knox was premium. We used to call it Weasel Tea. We'd pull up by the restrooms, 29 and 9 per gallon, 29 and 9 cents per gallon. Got 30 miles to the gallon. The toll on the George Washington Bridge was 50 cents, and the toll on the Tacony Palmyra Bridge to get out of Philadelphia was a nickel. So if everybody gave me $1 and I had 3 passengers, I got home for free, and I made a little bit. I gotta say, Volkswagen, this is a convertible. I gotta say, Volkswagen Beetles really, when they talk about them being an economy car from in the 50s, 60s, they are 100% correct. Nothing breaks. Eventually, we had to get a clutch at 111,000. But I mean, the car was just great transportation. But I wanted a Corvette, and I said, you know, it's nice to have a reliable car. I didn't think of 2 cars. So I sort of set my sights on a 61 or 2. I encountered much flack from a lot of people that had Corvettes, GTOs, 442s, 396 Chevelles, Jaguar E-Types, all kinds of stuff. The guys in the area that had nice cars all bought new cars. Guys like Mark Pion, who lived across the street from me, he got a 70 LS6 from Richard Chevrolet, Silverstone, silver black material. He gave me a ride in that car. Another guy, Larry, I got his last name, and he was friends with the guy who was dating my friend's sister. This guy had money, and he wanted to impress me. To them, I was just some poor college kid spending peanuts on a 10-year-old Corvette. That was, I mean, that's how, they didn't look upon these cars as cool. They looked upon them as very antiquated design, very slow, and it's a 10-year-old car. People said, a 10-year-old car. You're going to be fixing stuff night and day. It's crazy. I said, well, I'll find a better cars. So I got into finding cars. And a guy I was working with there was a 61 Fuelie in the parking lot at Lever Brothers, and then there was a guy that I worked with that had owned the 61 and 62, and then around the corner from me, there was a guy named Mr. Zimmerman who was an accountant, and he bought a 61 new, base engine 3-speed, white with a red interior, that was parked around the corner, and my brother and I knew his sons. So he would always talk about the car, and his story was when he bought that car, they lived in Brooklyn. That car was stolen about 4 times. They found it on blocks. They had to get new wheels and wheel covers for it. They had many problems with vandalism and theft in Brooklyn. When he moved out to Merrick, no problem. And they kept the car till 1970, and he would put all of his aiding machine, his papers in the trunk. He kept that car till it had 128,000 on it, and the engine was smoking like crazy, and he got rid of the car instead of rebuilding the engine. He bought a 70 Jaguar E-Type, and he had nothing but electrical problems, mechanical problems. And he said to me, you know, I should have kept that Corvette. I should have put the $1,500. He had what they did, a carbon and valve job on the two heads for $90. But all that does is clean up the head so it sucks the oil out the exhaust. You got to do the whole, everything, rings, bearings, the whole bit. But back then, people didn't think like that. They weren't collectors, they weren't restorers, it was transportation. Here's a guy living in at the time, a $30,000, $40,000 house in South America with two boys in high school, and he's driving an 8-year-old Corvette burning oil. People said, get a new car, and he did, and he regretted it. And that's where I saw that just because something was old didn't mean it was junk. And I started looking in bylines, and I bought these. I bought these are mine. I bought a lot more of them, but these somehow survived, and I found them. They never threw these out. They're February 7th, 14th, and 28th, 1969. Now, you have to realize you had Richard Nixon was inaugurated as president January 20th of 69. We had John Lindsay was mayor. He was in his first term. And we had many things happen in 1969. We had of course, landing on the moon. That's coming up the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. You had Ted Kennedy and the Chappaquiddick drowning. You had Woodstock, which was the great festival, which I didn't go to, but I have an alternative story that's better. And you also have the Sharon Tate's murder. That was a big story then. A lot of crazy Manson people. Everybody was scared. And there were a lot of other major stories that swept the nation. But I started looking in earnest in January of 69, and my dad had a couple of clients in Brooklyn that one guy had a Corvette, a stick that they told me it was a 62. And back then, people liked 61 and 2 because it was a newer car, and it had the Stingray back with the 4 lights. Turned out it was a 60. Car had 95,000 miles, had a rebuilt engine, needed some work, and they were asking like $900. And they paid like $300 for it and did some work and looking to flip it. So I said, no. And then you got the New York Times and bylines. And we'll go through bylines with the Corvettes maybe next month because there's a lot involved. Most of the cars, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, ranged from $500 to $1,000. Some people asked a little more, but you have to realize, you go back, there was no internet, there were no computers. All you had were newspapers. We had, channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13 on TV, and AM radio. FM was, some cars had it was just coming in, FM. But most people listen, WABC 77, WMCA 57, and then you had 1010 Wins was already all news all the time. That was gone. And then we had WGBB on Long Island. That was a local station for rock music. But you didn't have as much as you had today. And you didn't have answering machines. You didn't have any messaging. There was no way to really get in touch with somebody when you called them. There was no caller ID, there was nothing. It's just the phone rang and rang and rang, and that's it. Now, I called bylines the Bounty Hunters Press. 10 cents. Now, but that was for the Automotive Marine Edition. You could buy the full edition with all categories for a quarter, a dime. And every Friday, all the guys that were looking for, there were real bounty hunters who buy the bylines. And I found a lot of good cars in the bylines. I kept them. I eventually just sold them. Some of them were kind of beat. I found lots of stuff. And that's how I knew I had to get my own house because I couldn't live with my parents. I couldn't live with other people. And I really learned I really couldn't live with other people because people don't understand this. And I really started to collect. I bought a 63 Cadillac, 4-door sedan DeVille. from the original owner for $125. I bought a 60 Buick Electra 2.25 two-door sedan from the original owner out of Barn Lines in 1973, $100. All right, and it was like, I'll give you extra stuff. He had parts, tires, load up the trunk, take it all, $100. Now, $100 was a week's pay, but that was cool. I got a 57 Chevy, 4-door, 96,000 miles, original owner, V8, Power Glide, nice car, $150. And then I sold it for $200 and said, money! Now I'm empowered. Now I said, no, I'm a collector car dealer. Not quite. I didn't have a place to operate. I would put plates on these cars, and it would cost money. You got to insure it. There was no collector insurance except for serious antiques. And when we go through this, you'll see that you're talking 1969, a 25-year-old car was 1944, so that's a World War II, pre-World War II. The pre-war cars were the only things that were collected. Cars after World War II, maybe, you know, 46, 7, and 8, but that's it. But 49, 50, 51 Ford, 55, 6, 7 Chevy, those were prizes, and there was loads of them. They were all over the place, and there were a lot of really. I mean, I looked at a 1954 Hudson Hornet, positive ground, original owner. They wanted to give it to me for $50. I mean, wow. But I was scared with the 6-volt positive ground. I didn't know enough about it, and again, you have to have a place to do the work on it. I'm doing work in the street or on the driveway, which got me into trouble. But at any rate, in February 1969, we had a humongous snowstorm that was not forecast. It was February the 9th. And here, Daily News, the next day, Monday, February 10th, 8 cents. That was what the paper cost. Now, in fact, this guy was in the weather reservists. I was involved with a lot of weather clubs, and I was part of my job. So this guy that published this, he actually found the people that got married during the blizzard 25 years later, and there's pictures of them in here with 2 daughters and everything. It's pretty cool. And I even commented, I wrote in on this, and I said, I was at home ready to go out. It was Sunday, February 9th, 1969. A little light rain was falling, temperature about 34 degrees in Merritt. By late morning, the rain turned to snow. It snowed so hard all day, into the night, not forecast at all. By the next morning, I measured about 21 inches of snow. I was working in New Jersey at the time, and this 2 days of work. And this is true, the schools were all closed for a week. We didn't have the plows that you have today. We didn't have salt spreaders. They really, you know, getting around by car was not just getting to be important. And they figured, look, you get a big storm every few years, so you're not going to spend money in the budget. So politicians just didn't bother to spend. And the Meadowbrook Park, I remember, it had mounds of snow. They plowed, they didn't know what to do with all the snow. So they plowed it into big piles, and you were doing like an autocross, around this pile, around that pile, around that. Remember that?
Excuse me, Alan.
Yeah.
My GTO, I was parked in front of my garden apartment.
Yeah.
That following day, you could not see the car.
Yeah.
It was snowbound. It was 4 or 5 feet of snow for 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
The city got about 15 and a half, but Nassau, Queens especially, and Nassau got about 2 feet. And that was called the famous Lindsay snowstorm. Here's a picture of Mayor Lindsay touring Queens, and all the residents were throwing snowballs at
Alan,
him.
thanks for the date. I couldn't remember the date. Wow.
Yeah. So here we have February 7th, 1969, this Friday. I bought this, and 2 days later, the big storm. You have you have 5, 6 channels on TV and AM radio, no internet, nothing. You're stuck at home. You read bylaws, you make phone calls, and that's what I did. And we went through this. Corvettes and Thunderbirds were placed in the same section, but from domestic cars or whatever, we circled things that looked good, and we called. Now, the problem with bylines is, it's a commission paper. So it's a free ad, and you pay commission when you sell. And a lot of people, when they sold, they said, oh, it's super sale, try to beat them out of commission. It was 5% on the first 500. So for $25, see, if you put an ad in Newsday, it was like, for a week, it was about $12, $15. If it didn't sell, you had to run it again, it got expensive. Bylines, they ran up to 3 issues, the same ad, and then they would pound it. Okay, so I put cars in there to sell as well. And people, if you have a good deal, a nice car, they would come after you. But a lot of the cars in there, you would call, and you'd mark down how many times you call it, and the phone would ring and ring and ring and ring, and you hang up. And you try it again in a few hours. And finally, sometimes, like, you're chasing a car, you get somebody picking up at 9 o'clock at night, and you go, hi, I've been calling, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you finally got this guy. Because if he said, I gotta go to the bathroom, call me back, click, you lost him, okay? Or a lot of times, somebody would pick up the phone and you'd say, yeah, I'm calling about that 1962 Corvette you have for sale. She says, oh, that's my grandson's car. He works till midnight. Well, and that's, you'd get stuff like that because people lived in the house and they would pick up the phone and that wasn't the owner of the car. And you say, do you know anything about it? Like, what color is it? She says, white, I think, or red. I don't remember now. I never look at it, and you realize you're not getting anywhere. So I call it the Bounty Hunter's Bible because you really had to go out on a limb to really hunt down a deal. I bought a 59. It was in that section Green Acres and Valley Stream. Base engine 3-speed, painted white, painted red cove, but it ran and drove, needed a front wheel bearing. And it had a hardtop for 62. I got the car for like $270, and I drove it back. I took the plates off of one car. Back then you could get away with that. Threw the plates on, drove it home, went to the Cove and bought a wheel bearing for $5 and a can of grease, and I changed it, and now I had a nice running car, and I sold it for $500-600. And of course, you make a few dollars and you had fun. Because, I mean, the car was nice, but it wasn't. My 62, that was a different story. That was a very clean car that I bought. Now, here's the picture of it in June of '69. My mom took that picture. That's on Hewlett Avenue in South Merrick. And then, here's another picture of me. I mean, I have a full head of hair and everything. I was just about 20 years old. I paid $1,500 for the car, plus we gave him the Volkswagen. And the guy was a car collector. His name was Arthur Jacobs. His son Wade goes to a lot of the shows. He's into Ramblers. He's at a lot of the antique car shows. But his father had he was an engineer for Mason Mintz. They were right on Old Country Road, and he had about a dozen cars. And he said to me, he's buying a '31 Chrysler Roadster, so he's got to get rid of the Corvette. But he explained to me, he says, this car is so original. It's red interior, 71,000 miles, all original interior, original powertrain. He says, tell your mother and father to cut a hole in the roof and just put the car in the attic and leave it there. It'll be worth a lot of money someday. That's what he told me. So I told that to my mother, and she says, yeah, well, you can put it in his house. But at any rate, I bought the car and I said, I'm into it for $1,500 out of my own pocket. I used it, and I got up to 90 some odd thousand. I mean, I put another engine in it in 1972 because the engine it had to be overboard about 80,000. I put a 4-speed in it. I hooked up with the Fiorello brothers. Now the Fiorello brothers had a gas station in Merritt, Larry and Tony, and the father was Big Sal. And they had a lot of Corvettes. They used to joke around. They called it Plastic City, the gas station. But they called it a dinosaur because they all had mid-years. They said these cars are too antiquated, But they did the work, and they did my exhaust, and they helped me out. And when I did the engine rebuild, I couldn't finish it because they didn't have the tools. They said, we know you're an amateur, but that's okay, bring it in, we'll finish the work for you. And the car was really good, and I used it all the time till 1975. Then I was 1974, and I was at Frame Chevrolet, and I had a 57 Fuel in the showroom as a used car. And this other guy that was there looking at it, I became friends with him after that. He looked at my 62 and it was all stripped of paint, all right, because I was getting ready to have it repainted. And he made me an offer at the time of $2,200, which was like insanely high, way overpriced on his end. That car was worth $1,200. So I said, sure, I'll sell it to you. We did the deal, and I gave him all the parts from out of the attic and all. And then I bought a 59, which that I was in the Times, and that was really a beat car that needed a lot of work. So, it's a learning thing. And that was part of my education as I went through. But the bylines, I tell you, for 10 cents, it's probably one of the best reads out there, because the amount of cars in these papers is unbelievable. And there's many just used cars. I mean, 1969, so you'll find a 1964 GTO, all right, $300 or something in there. And the cars, a lot of the cars though were really beat. I remember looking at another 61 Corvette. It was in 1969. It was in one of the byline issues. It was out by Shea Stadium. I still remember the guy's name, Jerry Armani. He told me that car only had 51,000, but the brake pedal and the clutch pedal was wall. And back then, you didn't have repro from whatever that you could replace that. So we looked the car over, my father and I, said, this car's got a lot more miles than that. He only wanted $900, but he says, it's junk. You're gonna be spending a lot of money. So I bought this 62, and that was really a clean car, but it still needed work. But I got used to fixing stuff, and then you realize who's really a car person, who's not. Because all these guys that I hung out with, another guy, Peter Schiffer, he hung out. He had a '69 435 yellow coupe he bought. And then there was another guy, Stewie Most. He was friends with them. These guys had bucks. Another '69 435 coupe. I mean, he blew the clutch at Newbridge Road and Sunrise Highway in a drag race with 200 miles on the car. They didn't waste any time. It was break in, what break in? And they would look at my car, it wouldn't get anywhere. But this guy Larry, he got a '67 from a dealer, 435 convertible. It was the maroon with the saddle interior, 11,000 miles. He paid $2,500 for it. Wow. He brought it to the house on Hewlett Avenue. We were going up and down Hewlett Avenue in America, 100 miles an hour. I said, Larry, he was about 25, so, significantly older than me. I was 19, but he and his family had a lot more money, and he also had a lot more clout, so he didn't worry about those things. And then he ordered, I think from Bass Chevrolet, he sold a lot of high performance stuff. He ordered a '69 green saddle interior coupe, L46 engine, all the options. He came over with that car and gave me a ride up and down Hewlett Avenue, 100 miles an hour, trying to impress me. He says, the car you're looking for, that 59, he says, that will not handle like this. That will not be as fast as this. I said, yeah, but I don't have $5,000. I understand, but still, you should look to get something newer, 66, 67, something like that. I said, it's out of my range, and I'm not going into debt. I said, I'm in school, I can't do that. And I saved all my money. And a lot of what I'm talking about is in the current issue of On Solid Ground with the Solid Axle Corvette Club. It's about this red 62 and how I got into driving red Corvette convertibles and how I got into the 1954 and I got 2 red ones and that whole craziness. Still remember I went away one time and I met this woman, young girl. I was what, 22, something like that, and she was there and she says, oh, does it have air conditioning? I said, no. She gave me a look like, I'm not riding in a car in the summertime sweating without air conditioning and mess up my hair. And that's what I learned, that by 1969, you're driving something that's very dated, even though it's only 7 years old. And then I remember being in a race with a guy on the Meadowwood Parkway with a 66. She's with this girl who just came back from seeing Romeo and Juliet. I'm doing like 100. She buckles up, comes down like this. She runs out of the car when I got up to her house. I never talked to her after that. She just freaked out, and that she just wasn't finished. Not that you think about what you did. There was this guy, it was a 66. It was 427, probably a 390. It was the light, the Nassau blue. The guy was smoking a cigar. He was looking over at me. He was going to show me what his Stingray would do. And they were everywhere. Stingrays were. The charcoal chef that we hung out at. Mark Pyon was there. This guy Bernie had a 68, 427, 390, and a lot of the other guys. And then there was another guy named Frank Grittani. And Frank Grittani hung out at a lot of, even cruise nights in the 80s and 90s. He was a musician. He supposedly had a 66 L88. He would say his 66 was an L88. Whether he retrofitted it, I don't know. I didn't get involved with that. And then he had a Jaguar E-Type. And this girl I was going out with in Merrick, she wound up buying that car from him, the Jaguar. And it was a 70, brown with the biscuit interior. They call it salad. Jaguar called it biscuit. And it was the fastback coupe. Beautiful car. And we drove around in that, drove around in the Corvette. She was a better deal, but she lived in Manhattan. And her family was out in Merrick, so she would come out and right here, I might see her in Manhattan, but it's hard. There's all these dating exercises. Yeah.
So back then, what was the fastest car on the road? Was there one particular car that was...
The fastest car on the road, in 1971, I got gas at the power test station on Sunrise Highway, a little east of Babylon Turnpike. Premium was 32 and 9. And I brought the 62 in there, and next to me when I was there was a real CSX 3000 series 427 Cobra. There were no replicas then. The car was 4 years old. And the guy, he had the top down, it was summertime, he had his girlfriend there. She was a high maintenance chick. And he was looking at my Corvette. He was interested in my Corvette, and I was looking at his Cobra. And he got on Sunrise Highway and nailed it, and there were no red light cameras. He nailed that thing. When dusk cleared, he was gone. He was in Wantor. That car, I never saw anything so fast. That car was an animal. And that was the fastest car I remember ever encountering in those years. But I was in school in Philadelphia at Drexel, and I was in school summer and fall, and I worked winter and the spring in the co-op. So I became friends with this guy in one of my classes. His name was Neil Barron. He lived in Shelton, Pennsylvania. And he had a 64 Cutlass, and he made it to a 442. Milled the heads, did a little bit of tweaking and stuff, and he liked the drag race. So we went out to Atco Dragway. Yeah. Atco Dragway, the weekend of Woodstock. My roommate went to Woodstock. I went to Atco Dragway, and I raced my 62 Corvette, and he raced his 64 442.
What were you running back then?
Base motor, 3-speed. I didn't do anything to the car. This was summer of '69, and it was unbelievable what was in the pits. 55.7 Chevys, dragsters, hot rod. All kinds of stuff. What you see at a show today, that was like just old cars parked in the pits. It was just.
What'd you run in the quarter?
I didn't even do that well. It was probably
15.
Yeah, I was going to say 15.5, 15.8,
Yeah.
and I really, I had a tired engine. It was 80,000 miles on the car, but the thing I still did well. Shooting my power shift.
Mm-hmm.
Go to second, down to first, rev it up on the tack, as long as you don't jump the Christmas tree, and you smash it in the second, nail it until you're going about 4,500, and then pop it in the third, and away you go. And I didn't win on there, but I won National Speedway the next year in 1970 with the car. And then I put the engine in
It was red?
72. Yeah, red interior. Yeah. It's I
So
mean,
look, my dad's got a lot of old Super 8 movies from National Speedway back in the day.
oh, old movies. I got movies of Thompson Speedway in 1954 with Frank Dominiani racing, and he started racing in '53. I mean, at Bridgeham, not Bridgehampton, at Watkins Glen in the Grand Prix, the U.S. Grand Prix. But there's good movies and all that. But I was 20 years old. I was working at an industry job, making $108 a week, and I was financing an expensive hobby, and I was saving my money. And when I worked with Human in the summer of '68, I was working 6 days, 13 hours a day, and then the week went from Saturday to Friday, so they'd give you Saturday off, then you'd work Sunday to Friday, and then Saturday to Thursday. So you could work 12, 13 days in a row. I mean, but you got 25% commission. I was pulling in $150 a week, and a lot of that stuff cost the gas. I had a Volkswagen. Gas was $29.09. I mean, everything. People don't realize we have an inflated currency. Politicians have destroyed our money. We had people today need $20, $50, $80, $100. Back then, if I had $10 in my pocket, I was rich. I could go back and forth to work in New Jersey with my Volkswagen. The George Washington Bridge, you bought the ticket book. I just threw one away from 1987. It was 50 cents, okay? And then the other bridge, the Throgs Neck, was a quarter. So you're talking $1 for tolls. That was a big expense. I had a car that I didn't have to make payments on, and just fix it. And my gas, 30 miles to the gallon, is a penny a mile. So I mean, I'm getting to work on another $1 a day for gas, and $1 for tolls.
What was traffic like back then?
It was crowded, but not as bad as today. But it was still crowded. You had a lot of cross-town traffic. But see, Volkswagen Beetle in the 50s and 60s into the 70s, before they came out with, the Super Beetle and the automatic and all of that, you had a stick shift. No, you got 30 miles to the gallon, and that thing didn't break. And you just kept running and running and running. And the joke, the people that I gave rides in the car, they couldn't believe it. They said this thing runs on nothing. They said you're running on fumes. I mean, it was just you look at the needle, and it was like close to E, and even if you got to E,